Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church in Eugene. My name is Bob Surintz. I'll be your worship associate this morning. You can refer to me with the pronouns he and him. And as for a physical description, I am a short, brown-skinned man with a closely shaven brain cap, and I'm wearing black and white flannel with a black vest. Our ushers have a handy guide for worship, so if you like a little instruction about how we meet the needs of accessibility for folks here in our congregation, or if you would like to follow along on your phone, there's a QR code, and you can learn about how we participate in joys and sorrows later in the service. This morning, we have members of our Justice Council to help us lead worship. You'll hear from them later this morning. And we're so glad that you're here with us today. When UUs gather, it is our custom to light a chalice candle. It's a symbol of our faith, a symbol and metaphor for the hope we strive for ourselves and our world. This morning, I've asked Riley to come up and help light the chalice candle. And while she's coming forward, I'll share this reading. We light this flame to ignite the sacred power of justice. We light this flame so that it may be a beacon of hope in moments of uncertainty, fear, anxiety, and the unknown. We light this flame and are emboldened by its blaze, knowing our strength as prophetic and powerful people is rooted in the diverse ways we answer the call to love. This is by Jamie Yandel.
Just so you know. I want to talk about why I give my time and energy and money to help support this church. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Personally, when I come to Sunday service, it's like I inhale all the good stuff. A thought-provoking sermon that reminds me of all the good values we hold dear. And when I look around the sanctuary, I can see and feel that I am not alone. Plus, it gets me out of the house on a Sunday morning, and there are yummy snacks and coffee and great conversations. Helping out, getting involved, and giving financially is the exhale. I know that there are so many ways that this church supports the community by providing space or volunteers or donating money to organizations such as Food for Lane County, the Egan Warming Center, the Hope and Safety Alliance, Queer Eugene, Rural Organizing Project, Helping Immigrants Surge, which is showing up for Racial Justice, and so much more. Oh, and lucky for us, there is a pledge drive happy hour happening just this afternoon. That's at 2:30 in the social hall, and there's a table in the hallway for more information. Well, I will be standing after the service. With all the good stuff I get from this place, how can I not give back in some way? It's as simple as that. Oh, thank you.
Good Sunday morning, everyone. I'm the Reverend Jen Youngsun Ryu, and I have the privilege of serving this beautiful congregation. I use pronouns she and her. Today, like many of you, I'm wearing my yellow Side of Love t-shirt, and I've got a stole on top of that. I think we forgot to say hello to our Zoom friends. We have maybe 50 people on Zoom on a regular basis on Sunday. The Zoom congregation is its own church, and some of you are not able to come in person for a variety of reasons, and I love it that you're here. Thank you so much for joining and adding to the spirit of this place. This is our time for joys and sorrows, and so Zoom friends, if you want to type in the chat, I'll read a couple of those in a few minutes out loud. Also, if you want to share some of the joys and sorrows that you've been holding this week, you can write them on pieces of paper, and I'll read a few of them from the pulpit. You can also go to one of our 3 Joys and Sorrows stations and place a stone in water as an outward expression of the things that you've been carrying in your heart all week. I think a lot of you have come to the sanctuary this morning hearing the terrible news of another murder in Minneapolis. It's too much. You know, sometimes it just feels like it's too much to bear. Let us not close our hearts. Let us not turn away from the pain. Let us turn toward one another with all of our grief and our anger and our outrage and our sadness. Let's turn to one another.
Good morning, beloveds. My name is Daniel Blades. I am a white older man wearing a blue sweater and a black and white keffiyeh. I'm referred to with he, him pronouns, and I'm here on behalf of UUs for Justice in the Middle East. I'm not sure when I became an anti-imperialist, because I wasn't always one. In my teens, my favorite book was The Lord of the Rings, which I probably read once a year from ages 12 to 18. The concluding volume is The Return of the King, who is protecting the good civilized people of Middle-earth against the inhuman orcs and the barbarian hordes from the south and east. Divine order will save them, and divine order is manifested in empire. Again, this was my favorite book. No doubt there are other interpretations, but the book does end with the reunited kingdom, which is a not too subtle nod for an author who is a citizen of the United Kingdom. But there were other stories I was familiar with, other pieces of culture. In December of 1979, yes, I still remember the date, I bought a copy of the album London Calling by the British punk band The Clash. The only band that matters, as a sticker on the record proclaimed. The Clash were leftists with definite anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist leanings. In fact, the band priced their album, which was a double album, as a single album so that their fans could afford it. One of the songs, The Clampdown, still inspires me. The second verse of which goes, "The judge says 5 to 10, but I say double that again. I'm not working for the clampdown. No man born with a living soul can be working for the clampdown. Kick over the wall, cause governments to fall. How can you refuse it? Let fury have the hour. Anger can be power. Do you know that you can use it?" This is a song of resistance. So here I am at 18 with competing visions provided by my culture at the point when my political journey began in earnest. Over time, I found the idea of resistance more compelling. But these conflicting narratives of empire and oppression on one hand and resistance on the other are found throughout our cultural products. This topic was taken up explicitly by the late Edward Said in his book, Culture and Imperialism. In this book, Said explores how culture is used to transmit the ideas and structures of empire. Edward Said was a Christian Palestinian born in 1935 in Jerusalem. In 1948, his family was forced to flee Palestine during the Nakba, when Jewish settlers began attacking the people of Palestine and pushing them into smaller and smaller enclaves. Said's family escaped to Cairo, Egypt, and Said eventually came to the U.S. to attend boarding school. After graduating from Harvard, he became a professor of literature at Columbia University. Beginning in the 70s, he became a vocal proponent of Palestinian freedom and a harsh critic of the oppressive means of the Israeli government. He died in 2003 and was buried outside of Beirut, Lebanon. In Culture and Imperialism, Said looks at great works of European literature and how they transmit ideas of imperialism, sometimes boldly and sometimes subtly. But the end result is that they foster an idea of the unquestionable and even natural domination of the world by European empires. For example, in his analysis of Jane Austen's Mansfield Park, he discusses how Sir Thomas returns from setting things aright in his estate in the British colony of Antigua to set things aright at Mansfield Park. It is, Said argues, the same idea of order and improvement in both instances. The power of, in fact, the need of empire is present in both the overseas colonies and the homeland. Now, Said does not suggest that Austen and other great artists of the age of European empire should be dismissed, but rather placed within this broader context, and that if we look clearly and closely, that empire is always there, sometimes explicitly, sometimes in hints, not usually resolved by the author, but when seen and understood by readers, allows for a fuller, more nuanced, and more complex understanding. His intent is not to disparage Western culture, but to deepen and enrich it by placing it within the larger world. But he makes a further point that is directly connected to today's service. In establishing their empires, Europeans also created resistance. Certainly, this resistance was often futile as these empires spread across most of the world. But it existed, and the stories of that resistance became touchstones for later acts of rebellion. For the imperialists, this resistance seemed foolhardy, wrong-headed, and doomed to failure. And for decades, it did fail, until one day the resistance didn't fail. In a historically brief amount of time, the world was decolonized. Resistance lasted generations, and at the height of empire in the late 19th and early 20th century, empire looked both inevitable and invincible. But it turned out that it was the collapse of empire and the freeing of the colonized that now seems inevitable. It's true that states and governments established after decolonization failed to create the conditions of true liberation for all their people. But it is also true that liberation, given forms that persisted in various cultures, provided the means for the end of the great European empires. Today, the world faces another kind of empire, the United States. For the most part, the U.S. doesn't call itself an empire, something the British and French empires were proud to do. After its expansion across the North American continent, taking half of Mexico and the lands of innumerable native peoples, the U.S. was mostly not in the business of direct colonization. The United States is, as Chalmers Johnson called it, an empire of bases with some 800 military bases throughout much of the world. But like all empires, and most tellingly, the U.S. uses incredible violence to achieve what it wants. During my lifetime, I have seen this violence used again and again. From Vietnam to Iraq, Yugoslavia to Libya. Coups against governments on every continent, including Europe and Australia. And economic sanctions levied against perceived enemies that have led to more deaths than all the armed conflicts of the same period. Only seldom is this acknowledged. "Walk softly and carry a big stick," said Teddy Roosevelt. "We are an empire now," said an anonymous official of the George W. Bush administration. And most recently by Stephen Miller, who said, "The real world, that is governed by strength. That is governed by force. That is governed by power." Another way that the U.S. employs violence is indirectly through proxies, which can run the gamut from groups like the Contras in Central America and the Mujahideen in Afghanistan to nation states such as Iran under the Shah. This is not to say that proxies don't have their own motives, but only that the U.S. will use these actors for the purposes of the United States. It is in this last category that the relationship between the U.S. and Israel exists. Since the 1970s, the U.S. has caused the desire of Israel to be the dominant power in Western Asia to exert control over the people and resources there. In the last 2 years alone, Israel has attacked Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Qatar, and Iran. It has increased its presence in the West Bank, killing over 1,000 people and further dismembering the territory. And most horrifically of all has been the genocide in Gaza. All of this with the full support of the U.S., financially, militarily, and diplomatically. As UUs for Justice in the Middle East, we are adamantly opposed to the U.S. empire in the Middle East. We see this as the main obstacle to peace and justice in the region. As citizens in the heart of this imperial project, we believe it is our duty to work against this destructive and oppressive force for the benefit of all those who live in the Middle East and suffer from the U.S. empire. But let us go one step further and examine how the methods of empire come home. In a process known as the imperial boomerang, the tactics of empire return to the imperial core. Paramilitary forces such as ICE, the National Guard, and even units of the U.S. military are used to put down those who rally against the oppression of the state. It is eerie to recall images of U.S. military forces arrayed against civilians in Iraq. The parallels are disturbing as they are obvious. It doesn't seem coincidental that Jonathan Ross, the murderer of Renee Good, was an Iraqi war veteran. And remember how Sir Thomas returned to Mansfield Park to put in practice what he had already done in the colony. Empire always comes home. Said recognized this, as did Martin Luther King. In his famous address delivered at Riverside Church in New York City, King said, "Now it should be incandescently clear that no one who has any concern for the integrity and life of America today can ignore the present war. If America's soul becomes truly poisoned, part of the autopsy must read Vietnam. It can never be saved so long as it destroys the deepest hopes of men the world over." It had become clear to King that the struggle for true freedom in the United States required a commitment to freedom for all peoples in the world. This is what Said refers to as liberation, when those striving to end imperial oppression understand that we are all interconnected, that cultures, peoples, and nations are not separate but intertwined historically and in the present moment. True liberation can only be achieved when it is expanded everywhere to everyone. As King said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. I recently saw a photo of a sign from a protest which read, "All oppression is linked." This is, I believe, absolutely true. But I also believe it's corollary. All resistance is linked. And when we become aware of these linkages, When we trace how these connections operate in all of our activities, we become stronger and more resilient. And we come to another corollary. Resistance to oppression anywhere is resistance to oppression everywhere. Today, we will hear from members of our congregation in their roles within various justice groups. On one level, it seems as if all of our work is fragmented, piecemeal, isolated. But I suggest we take a deeper look at all that we do as individuals and in groups not represented here today. Draw upon a fundamental tenet of our faith. We are all connected. Our resistance is all connected. Resistance everywhere is connected. It can be overwhelming to face our reality today. And the truth is, we may not live to see all the outcomes we desire and fight for. Today, I am wearing my wage peace button that I wore constantly as the U.S. ramped up and then began the war against Iraq in 2003. As you probably know, the invasion of Iraq occurred despite the largest anti-war protest in American history. Edward Said did not live to see the liberation of the Palestinian people, but his life and the numerous written works he created still inspire people around the world. In this congregation are folks who protested the war in Vietnam, nuclear weapons, and fossil fuels. You stood up for the rights of labor and indigenous peoples. You fought for black liberation, women's liberation, queer liberation. You resisted oppression in many dimensions and by a multitude of actions. But it is unfortunately true that all this resistance has not created the world we want to live in. And yet, I guarantee that what we do here at UUCE will inspire and uplift those here now and those in the future. We can't do it all, but we will not stop. So, come, join the resistance.
How is your group practicing resistance? And second, do you have some small, easy actions for us? Do you have anything that we can do to just forward justice a little bit and to practice resistance ourselves? We'll start with Susan, we'll do 4, and then we'll have a musical break, and then we'll hear from the rest of the 4.
Good morning. My name is Susan Oldland, pronouns she, her, and I'm also here representing UUCE's chapter of Justice in the Middle East. A little background, founded in 1971, UUJME now has 40 chapters nationwide. Our mission is to work with UU communities to educate and mobilize individuals, congregations, and denominational leaders to recognize and counter inequality and injustice in Palestine, and to support our allies in global justice and anti-oppression movements. And a little kind of supporting what Daniel has said today. Daniel said that empire always comes home. Actually, he didn't say that, but it's important to know that the same forces violating human rights in Palestine and other countries are the very same ICE utilizes here at home. Minnesota is a proving ground for escalating oppression in the U.S. Based on reports from human rights organizations, journalists, and government documentation, ICE and other U.S. federal law enforcement agencies have participated in training sessions and exchange programs for over 20 years with Israel's military and security forces to learn the tactics of oppression. Our faith calls us to witness injustice, speak out, and take action, Together we can find the courage to bear witness here and abroad, resist the tyranny, and use economic tools at our disposal to divest from the instruments of oppression. Witness, resist, divest. Also, support independent journalism. We also will have a table after the service in the hallway if you want to learn more about our group. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Anna Lopez Bainbridge, and I'm wearing a cream-colored sweater, black slacks with a green scarf, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm here to tell you about our Immigration Justice Action Group and how we practice resistance. IJAG's resistance works both on a personal and community scale. On the personal level, this year we lent our support to a refugee family from Afghanistan. We've helped them navigate many aspects of living in our community, from English lessons, healthcare appointments, and accessing food assistance programs to sponsoring after-school activities, obtaining a family computer, and needed car repairs. On a larger scale, this year we worked in coalition with other community groups to get Avello Airlines, the airline contracted with ICE to fly deportations, out of Eugene, and we arranged for UUCE to host the powerful Melting Ice exhibit that helped educate the community about what immigration detention is really like. Individually, we also attend vigils, protests, council meetings, write to our elected officials in support of immigration justice issues. Some serve as legal observers on rapid response teams, or what is called MigraWatch, which organizes neighbors to be alert and raise the alarm about ICE in our neighborhoods. If you want to learn how to respond to the presence of ICE in your neighborhood, or how to record and report ICE actions, we're offering a MigraWatch rapid response training on Tuesday, February 3rd from 6 to 8 p.m. here at UUCE, and informational flyers are available after the service.
Hi, my name is Barry Broadbent, representing the Food Justice Committee and all the other organizers and volunteers that help get food to people in need. On January 3rd, the Justice Council met for the first time in 2026, and our priority was to respond to the current administration's attempt to weaponize food availability for those on SNAP benefits. And I am so proud of us. We as the church community acted quickly. We created a food share system that sent people home with food for themselves, their neighbors, and to fill the little free pantries. And in addition, at church itself, we raised over $1,000 and sent a big fat check to Food for Lane County. So please resist the idea that your actions don't make a difference, and resist the idea in thinking that you are alone, because you are not alone.
My name is Sandy Goldie, and I'm representing Third Act Oregon's Eugene chapter, where we are dedicated to working for democracy and the environment. We work closely with this church's Earth Action team. We all know how to create a bright future for the environment. More trees, less fossil fuels. With all the chaos in our country right now, we are not taking our eyes off the most impactful issue of our time, the rapidly changing climate. One way we can all support progress towards a healthy climate is go to this website on my sign, which is Climate Action Now on our computers, or download the Climate Action Now app on our phones. This enables us to take many actions a day in just minutes, actually in seconds, so that they will move us effectively towards fewer extreme weather events and a brighter future for our kids and grandkids. Action is the antidote to despair.
This song is written by Pete Seeger. Old devil time devil time, you'd like to bring me down when I feel low. My lovers gather round and help me rise to fight you one more time. Old devil pain, you've often pinned me down. You thought I'd cry and beg you for the end, but at that very time, my lovers gather round and help me rise to fight you one more time. Old devil fear, you with your icy hands. Old devil fear, you'd like to freeze me cold when I'm afraid. My lovers gather round and help me rise to fight you one more time. Old devil hate, I knew you long ago, before I learned the poison in your breath. Now when I hear your lies, my lovers gather round and help me rise to fight you one more time. No storm or fire can ever beat us down. No wind that blows but carries us further on. And you who fear, all lovers gather round, and we will rise to sing this one more time. And we will rise to sing this one more time.
It's on. There we go. My name is Jim Bronson, and I'm Sandy's partner. I work most directly with other senior activists in Third Act Oregon, Eugene, where we meet on the last Thursday of every month in person at Dara Cafe to inspire and inform each other and to target specific actions. In February, on the 16th, some of us will be traveling to Salem to lobby legislators on behalf of the Oregon Climate Resilience Superfund Act. It's also known as the Make Polluters Pay Bill. This bill will establish a fund with assessments from only the very largest billion-dollar fossil fuel corporations. The result over time will be that the big polluters will pay for costs caused by their pollution, such as wildfire damage and suppression, which we taxpayers have paid for over $6.8 billion per year. That's $3,900 per household. Polluters must pay up.
Hi, my name is Barbara Kellogg. My pronouns are she and her. And I, along with Dennis Reynolds, represent our Justice Council in the Activist Coalition of Eugene and Springfield, otherwise known as ACES. ACES is composed of 22 different groups in Lane County, whose focus now is creating visibility and building resistance to ICE activities in Eugene and Springfield. You all know what ICE is doing. And ACES, along with Lane County Immigrant Defense Network and many others are bringing lessons from Portland, Minneapolis, Chicago, and LA to build resistance networks here, using protests at the federal building, community canvassing, and micro watch networks. I go to the federal building at least once a week to stand at the Interfaith Vigil, Singing for Our Lives, on Tuesday from 12 to 1, and I urge you to join us. But there are some things that you can do today to take action. Very important, ICE funding ends January 30th. The bill is in the Senate. Please call Senators Wyden and Merkley and thank them for refusing to fund ICE. They need to hear from us. The other thing that you can do is boycott businesses that support ICE, including the Hilton Hotels, Target, Delta Airlines, Enterprise Car Rental, Home Depot, and Amazon. These businesses are the foundation that support the ICE activities that are going on throughout our country. Thank you very much.
My name is Sue Craig, and I am here for Oregon UU Voices for Justice. And I thank you for talking about connections, because that's who we are for you, to connect with everybody, all our 20 Unitarian or fellowships or congregations here in Oregon. And we do this in several ways. We have a wonderful newsletter every month, and you can find out what other people are doing. We've told them about our melting ice. We've told them about Alivo Airlines and to help us with that, et cetera, et cetera. So if you've got wonderful things that you want to share, this would be a really good way to go. We're also, because of we're in that through our Justice Council here, we are also a part of CUSON, which is the coalition of SANS groups nationally. They're not in every state, but they're in a lot of them. And I'm going to look into what's going on in Minnesota and see if we can find a way to connect with their legislators, because ours are wonderful. It's the other ones that we need to talk to and have some input in that area. One of the things we have done is develop a liaison group, and we have liaisons now in 15 out of our 20 congregations here in Oregon, and they take information from us and share it with all our congregations that are on board, and then we give them information that we want to get out to you. And I thank many of you who have given testimony to our legislators here in Oregon. And I thank you if you will please write letters to the editor. The RG actually had 3 good ones in today. Look at that. So there are lots of things you can do. And talk about Home Depot. If you want to go and buy from them an ice scraper and then turn it around and take it back and make them take it back and then go buy it again and then take it back. There are all kinds of ways that we can be resistive and have fun with it. So I'd love to hear from all of you. We've got lots of good ideas going along that we want to share from lots of congregations. Terry Wright, will you stand up? Thank you. Terry, okay, Terry is our liaison.
Hi, my name's Marty, and I'm a trans man and a member of our LGBTQIA plus group. To find out how you can help us help transgender refugees relocate to Eugene, please visit our table after the service in the hallway. Another way you can help is to stop the spread of misinformation about trans and non-binary people. Right-wing think tanks have spent the past 2 decades finding ways to undermine and criminalize transgender people and turn others against them. They make things up and spread them around as if they were the truth, and they make it sound like a good thing. So when you hear someone say that they want to protect young girls in sports from boys dominating their sports, or wanting to protect women in locker rooms from being exposed, or worrying that children are being mutilated or abused by gender-affirming care, say, stop right there. I don't know if you know this, but you're spreading rumors and misinformation designed with the goal of eradicating good people. What you are saying spreads harm. Even if you don't change the mind of the speaker, you might change how their message lands and prevent it from spreading further. Thank you for your allyship.
Let's say our closing words together. We extinguish this flame, the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And as you go forward into this day, my friends, we have given you a lot of things that you can do. Will you promise me that you will just do one thing this week to further the resistance? Yes. Then go in peace, my friends, and go, as always, in love.